My name is Nick Wambugu from Nairobi, Kenya. I'm a filmmaker, film producer, film director, cinematographer. I'm a drone pilot, pretty much everything. But all in all, I'm a storyteller. I identify myself as a creative and a storyteller. Yeah, so I'm happy to be invited today for this forum, and ideally, I'll be speaking about the business of storytelling. This is turning turning passion into profit. And on this topic, I'll be pretty much speaking about how there's pretty much so different ways and many ways which as a storytellers we can change, or rather transform your passion into profit. Because most of us ideally come into this world or come into this industry or business through passion. But I'll be kind of speaking heavily mostly on how creatives slash storytellers, how they should navigate through their contracts, and also how those specific contracts, can later on create a sustainable, income through what we create and what we make and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, broadly, as I speak as a storyteller, of course, I'll be speaking from my end, as a filmmaker. But ideally, it's pretty much all, as long as you're a storyteller, whether you paint, whether you're an artist, any form of creative, as long as you're a storyteller, I mean, it pretty much applies. Difference will be just maybe in specific fields. I will start by delving straight into contracts. And contracts pretty much a legal binding, or rather a legal agreement between you and someone else. In this case, mostly in our cases, is normally it can be you and your producer, for example. If you're a film crew or a film cast, it can be, in other cases, maybe if it's not the producer, it can be you and the client, or you and and any other body, or anything of the sort. Ideally, someone who's giving you work, or someone who you're working together. And so, I mean, when I think about history of contracts, it's pretty much how we, especially as a storytellers slash creatives, we come from a point of, since most of our work comes from a very passionate point of view. This is from an emotional side, so we end up bypassing contracts, making of contracts. We end up bypassing reading contracts. There's always a feeling, it's pretty much our industry, a feeling whereby contracts seem to be, it's not something good, or something like when you start a conversation with contracts and stuff like that, it already feels like, it's coming from bad faith. But ideally, contracts, what they normally do, they pretty much they protect both parties. In this case, for example, as filmmakers, as a director, as a as a cinematographer, as a producer, it pretty much protects you and your producer, you and your client, in case of anything, in case anything happens and stuff like that. Also, good thing with contracts is they kind of stipulate, or rather, can I say it? They kind of tell exact what you should be doing or what you do in a project, and they pretty much elaborate and stimulate your operations, how to work, when to work, all those kind of stuff. This is, of course, case in point, mostly in our world, whereby we are in film crews, we are in sets, filming and stuff like that. And contracts, I mean, also, as much as they shouldn't feel, anytime you're going into a contract, it shouldn't feel like it's something, like it's like there's a gun to your head about it. No, contracts, I mean, ideally, I would say it's a way of someone letting you know this is what you're working on. It's ideally someone letting you know this is in case a producer, a client, or whatever it is, trying a legal way, trying to show how we are engaging in a project or anything else. And good thing with this is, the good thing with contracts is also you can be in a situation, or you have also the rights to either amend, if, say, for example, you're reading some your contract, and maybe some of the clauses you don't agree with, or you can always suggest from your end, maybe could this change, could this move here and stuff like that. So by the time you are on a project with this specific body, this specific person, and you've signed each other's contract, I mean, it should always feel like it's coming from a fair deal from both parties. And with contracts, besides protecting you in those instances, now, because I just wanted, first of all, to show you how, by first of all protecting yourself in a project, how now through that, with the same kind of contract, it also now helps you in navigating in through your finances, through your rights and stuff like that. So this is, I would say, now with the contracts, once you've discovered what the engagement you have with the project, contracts will help you now formulate how you're getting resources, how you're getting paid in different kind of projects. So, for example, and also like how to fairly, I would say, to fairly, distribute, the ratings of a project, of a film, or something of the sort. So I will give like examples. Say, for example, in films, by having a contract in films, so whether it's coming from, say, a film producer, for example, or a production house in that case, everyone who signs a contract is through the production house or through the producer, is, first of all, you are binding yourself to a situation whereby you are accepting this is the kind of pay that I want to do this is the kind of, in exchange of my skills, or in exchange of something you've provided, say, for in a set or something of the sort. And by having that, it kind of protects your finance, how it comes through, even if, say, for example, you're in a situation or projects whereby you're not paid upfront, for example, or for example, in projects whereby it's a film and funding is coming as the film is ongoing. So you're able to protect yourself from being in a situation whereby, when the project is finally out, anyone or the owners of the project can dictate much later on what you deserve or what you get and stuff like that. Or, for example, if a project fails in between, and maybe most likely it's not your fault, you didn't have anything to do with it. It can be even forces that are beyond, say, for example, a specific project. Say, for example, it's, say, a loan, or a funder had maybe just pulled out. By having signed that contract, it kind of protects you from a situation whereby that project, if it ever makes money, you are in a situation whereby you pretty much get what you deserve from maybe what you signed, or what was agreed in terms of sharing. And for us creatives and storytellers, sometimes why this is very important is, and besides the commercial jobs that we do, which maybe sometimes they come from advertising agencies, they are just commercial, whereby you don't own any rights thereafter once it's out. Most of our work also especially as storytellers, comes from doing passion projects amongst ourselves, or having just collaborators in your project. And I think one of the best practices is always, however small a passion project is, one of the best practices is always have something on paper, something signed, something an agreement or anything of the sort. Because some of these passion projects may be small or maybe big, they are done well, done from a point of love and all of that kind of stuff. Then when it's being pitched to someone, it always sounds, it's a zero production, come help us and stuff like that. But much later, these productions end up raking big and becoming big time. And it's at that point, for like the producer of the films, the producers of the film, they might end up taking all, say for example, all the credits, all the rights, all the money. Yet some of the most hardworking people for that production to reach where it is are people who are on that set. So that's one of my biggest lessons as a filmmaker, whereby I decided even the small passion projects, you always have some kind of paperwork. It even helps you to, it helps you and the people you're working with to be in a situation whereby even they can help market or even sell or distribute your film on behalf of you, because everyone kind of feels, they have ownership to the film. So that's a very, very, very important aspect in contracts. And I mean, in the same kind of contracts, with helping in, providing equitable ways of sharing resources or sharing money, by maybe your skills or something of the sort. Also, most times as guys, we find ourselves in situations whereby we work in projects whereby a project maybe doesn't have enough funding, doesn't have enough resources, or doesn't have enough money, at least, to cater what someone should be, maybe their rate cards or something of the sort. But, probably it has just something to keep the production to go on, pretty much like production money. There are just different ways of, by not having, say, for example, resources that could, a check that, you're just given in exchange of your skill. There are just different ways of how you can much later get income from what you've worked on. This is, you can be in a situation whereby you decide, say, for example, to sign rights. Maybe signing IP rights. So, for example, I'm a film editor, or I own a lot of equipment, and there's a film that needs specific equipment that they don't have maybe money to rent it. I may decide to give them, say, a production X company in exchange of rights to a specific production or a specific project or film. And in that way, it's a win-win situation whereby I, as the owner of the equipment, for example, I have rights to a specific film, which, say, for example, it becomes big and it has like, big returns and stuff like that. Whereas the production company, they will be able to get equipment and do their project. So it's a win-win situation whereby now, for me, for example, someone who owns an equipment company, a rental company, for example, I am guaranteed, once the film is out, it's something like I have invested in something that it can be, say, for example, residuals or specific rights, depending how it's negotiated between you and the producer. And so you will have, sustainable income much later, even in times whereby you don't have like the daily projects. And this is just a way of, because we all coming from, most storytellers come from collaborators point of view, making these creative and artistic projects. It becomes a win-win situation to both parties, whether the producers, who maybe they might not have enough resources, or guys who have the skill, but they might want to extend the term with rights. So yeah, that's a very important thing about contracts. Checking the rights, how you want to own it, and it's all stipulated in the contract. And I mean, it's always, very tiring, and it might feel lazy to read contracts. They might be 200 pages, whatever pages it is, but that by just giving that time, it's pretty much a part of production. By giving that time to read your contracts and stuff like that, they might help you and save you much later in life, even after maybe you are out of the industry or out of the game or anything. So the same thing with we have residuals, for example, in film, whereby performers, actors, they can benefit from films. For example, if something changes with the film besides the maybe intended purpose. Say, for example, you do a film, then the intended purpose was cinema. Then after cinema, something comes up in the film, has been bought by a broadcaster or streaming sites or anything of the sort. So performers, actors, and all of and everyone, especially involved in performing, you are able to be in a situation whereby you can be able to be getting something, income, revenue from this situation, because the film might be big and or the film might be, for example, timeless. And so whether it plays 50 years from now, 10 years from now, you're still raking from your skill, from your performance. Yeah, so yeah, that's, I feel, in my journey as a filmmaker, and especially this year, most of the things I've been discussing with people and also learning a lot is the whole area of contracts, and also how literally contracts, just by reading a contract, fighting for your rights, knowing your rights, they can be an extreme source of sustainable income as a storyteller, besides working from project to project, film to film. You can have like income that is generated over time, including there are some contracts I know in specific countries. I was speaking with someone, and I don't know which country is it in Europe, whereby even some rights can go even to fourth generation, four of your kids. And so that's the power of having, knowing about contracts, and fighting for your rights in a contract, and making sure the contracts is, you feel the contract, you don't feel like you've been put aside or anything of the sort. Yes, so yeah, that's pretty much my contribution to how contracts, and rights can, in our industry as storytellers, can help create sustainable revenue. Yeah. Thank you.